The train doors opened. Jack Eastman, a successful lawyer, hopped onto the Amtrak train that was traveling from New York to Washington, D.C. He sat down next to a young man who introduced himself as Matt Linden. Matt was shaking back and forth, looking terribly nervous. Jack finally asked him what was wrong. Matt poured out his story. A few years ago, during my junior year of high school in Baltimore, I started an online business that became very successful. I spent day and night working on buying and selling products and totally neglected my schoolwork. My parents told me to keep up my grades and that I would regret it if I didn't. I yelled at them and didn't listen. As my business became more successful and I grew richer, the arguments got worse. I stopped coming home every night, and when I did, I treated my parents and siblings terribly. In the middle of my senior year, I dropped out of school altogether. One night, I had a horrible fight with my parents, and I decided to leave home and live on my own. I moved to New York and continued working on my business there. 2 years later, my business began to bottom out. I was losing customers and started going into debt. I had no choice but to shut the business down. I had absolutely nothing. No money, no friends, and no family. Out of desperation, I wrote my parents a letter where I told them that I would be getting on a train to Washington, D.C. that passes through Baltimore. I gave them the date and time of the train I was taking. I then wrote that I remember there was a tree next to the Baltimore train stop, and if they found it within themselves to forgive me for everything I put them through, to put a white flag on the tree. If they do, I would know that they want to take me back as their son. If not, I'll stay on the train and continue on to Washington. So what did they do? Jack then asked. I'm on the train right now. 20 minutes later, the train slowed down at the Baltimore stop. Matt couldn't bear to look out the window and asked Jack to look for him and see if there was a white flag on the tree. Matt, there isn't a white flag on the tree, Jack said. What? Are you sure? And as Matt looked up, he saw that the entire tree was covered in white. Standing there were Matt's parents, with tears streaming down their faces. He got off the train and ran to hug them tight. They said to him, no matter what you've done and no matter what you do, we will always love you. Matt's parents embodied the trait of unconditional love. Their love for him wasn't based on what he did, what he gave them, or what he accomplished. Their love was constant and complete. And Matt came to realize that this was one of the few things he could count on to give him strength. Parents love their children no matter what, because they understand that love does not lead to commitment, but that commitment leads to love. Parents commit to loving their child unconditionally, and the more they commit, the more they give. The more they give, the more they love that child. In fact, the root of the Hebrew word ahava, love, is the word hav, which means to give. By giving, we generate a bond of love. The way to develop unconditional love for our spouses, our children, our family members, and even our friends is by committing, by going all in. When we commit to giving without any demands, limits, expectations, or thoughts of what we might get in return, that love will continue to develop and grow. It's a love that has the power to heal wounds and bind people together. It's a love that transforms ourselves and the world around us.